Ray-Ban Meta glasses come with open-ear audio, so you can listen to your favorite music without blocking out the world around you.
Hey Meta, play Gorgeous.
Here's Gorgeous by Doja Cat.
You can also ask Meta AI questions.
Hey Meta, when's Doja Cat's next concert?
Doja Cat is playing at the Los Angeles Theater next Tuesday.
Sweet.
Ray-Ban Meta glasses, available at Ray-Ban stores and other authorized retailers.
Hi, I'm here to pick up my son Milo.
There's no Milo here.
Who picked up my son from school?
Streaming only on Peacock.
I'm gonna need the name of everyone that could have a connection.
You don't understand. It was just the five of us.
So this was all planned.
What are you gonna do?
I will do whatever it takes to get my son back.
I honestly didn't see this coming. These nice people killing each other.
All Her Fault. A new series streaming now only on Peacock.
Non-binary listeners, ladies and gentlemen, heroes and heroines, crooks and crookians, Matchbox 20. The audio performance you're about to enjoy discusses casinos and gambling. We do not recommend gambling with money you cannot afford to lose or that is needed to pay bills. If you have a gambling problem, contact your problem gambling hotline. If you do not know how to contact your problem gambling hotline, send an email to help@casinomcombat.com. We'll find that number for you and provide it to you. Our hosts' past performances are not indicative of anyone's future results, including his own. All materials presented here are based on actual facts. Names and dates are changed to protect the innocent and the guilty. Some events unrelated to outcomes may be omitted in the interest of brevity and clarity. The contents, and we spell that with a K, of this episode are the property of Volcanic Dingo LLC. All rights are reserved. It's me, it's TRG, the Ramblin Gambler. I am just trying to make a living and doing the best I can.
Lyrics, dude. Recite him some lyrics.
Straight up, what did you hope to learn about here? If I was someone else, would this all fall apart? Strange, where were you when we started this gig? Boy, wow. Lyrics indeed. Those are a bunch of questions demanding answers. We will get to that. Welcome to episode 150 of our Casino Combat podcast. Let's assume it's your first time and let me answer those questions. What did you hope to learn about here? Great question. If you wanted to solve true crimes, if you wanted to learn to invest in real estate, the stock market, or crypto, if you wanted to learn about self-care, you're out of luck. This isn't that. That's all over the podcasting space. But you can't learn that here. You can't. I'm sorry. I am not an expert in any of those. Although, as Dr. ECE pointed out, if you'd have bought Bitcoin with some of your winnings from the casino when I made that suggestion, you would have done really well. I timed that out really well, but that is not what I'm here to teach. If you wanted to learn how to play, if straight up what you wanted to learn about here is how to play and win the game of casino gambling, you're in luck. You have come to the right place. That's what we do. That's what we teach. This podcast, beginning to end, is a course in living a casino-enhanced lifestyle and making money as you do it. If I was someone else, would this all fall apart? Tough one. Tough one. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say if I was someone else, this would all fall apart. And here's my reason why. No one else has ever done this from what I can see. I think this is unique. I think this is different. I think it's a unique take on things. If I was someone else, this would all fall apart, but I am not someone else. I am TRG, and this is all going to be just fine. No concerns, no worries. Where were you when we started this gig? It doesn't matter where you were. You're here now, and we'd like you to stick around, and we are wanting you to be part of our squad. You see, the important part of that lyric is the word we. Where were you when we started this gig? It's very much about when we started. This isn't about me. This is about us. The squad is big. The squad is busy. We have some squad contributions in our episode today. We do Casino Combat together as a squad even when we are apart. If you are new, you just got invited to be part of an amazing group of skilled gamblers. You are invited to be part of our squad. Hang out, listen, find us on social media. All that stuff is on the website, CasinoCombat.com. Spell combat with a K. See if you think we can help you use casino gambling as a tool to enhance your life. I think you can. I know I do. I will have evidence for you today from others in their own words, explaining to you why their life is better for having found this podcast and used the things that are discussed here. Every episode, I put together a little something I call the battle plan. And I have an interesting one for you today for episode 148 of our podcast. I got an interesting question recently by the friend of a relative at a holiday party. So we will start off with a Questions My Sons Ask segment, and I will give you not only the answer I gave in the moment at the party, but an additional answer that I think is much more interesting to us as a squad and is a unique take on the original question. Then I'm going to do a Core Koncepts segment, do things a little differently. I want to talk about the Kelly strategy for betting on sports. And I wonder if perhaps there is another application of that strategy that I haven't figured out yet. So I'm really going to introduce it, and I'm going to see where the rest of you happen to run with that as we go forward. After that, we have a travel segment provided by Nakatomi Tony himself. He just had a day of play in Atlantic City, which when he described it to us in the Slack virtual VIP lounge, I just thought it was a perfect illustration of what I do and what I've tried to teach. And I made the ask, and he was willing, and apparently it was a bit of a tough chore, and I do feel badly about that, but he was kind enough to record his experience as he described it to us and send it over so you can hear it directly from him, not hear my interpretation of his experiences. We will, of course, as always, finish up in the virtual VIP lounge with some sips and a story about a magic window that Mrs. TRG and I just recently enjoyed during our cruise. Fairly straightforward. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's get started with episode 148 and Questions My Sons Ask.
What?
My sons ask questions about gambling. Listeners ask questions about gambling. And in this case, I was at a holiday party, and the friend of a relative that's a relative by marriage was trying to generate some holiday party conversation. They said, "Oh yeah, my uncle actually does a great podcast." And then they walked away. So this perfect stranger looks at me and says, "Oh, that's really interesting. What's the use case for your podcast?" I had to pause for a minute, right? I had to take a beat. And so I did, and took a sip of my beverage, and I said, well, the use case for my podcast is to win the game of casino gambling. And they looked at me with a blank expression, and that's not abnormal. And I said, imagine the casino itself as one big game. And inside that game, there are a whole series of traditional gambling games. There are slot machines, there are blackjack tables, there are craps tables, there are roulette tables, there are high limit rooms, there are restaurants, there are shows. All of that is wrapped up in a point system, and we're trying to beat that and teach other people how to beat that. At which point the other person took a sip of their beverage and then looked at me confused. That's my interpretation of their expression. Perhaps they didn't mean it that way, but to me, took a sip, which means to say they took a beat, and then looked confused, and then said, and I cut him off and I said, I'm sorry to interrupt. Let me explain this perhaps in a different way. I said, imagine we are playing the game of casino gambling. And within the game of casino gambling, we are going to go to the casino on a fairly regular basis for the month. And they're going to give us some stuff. And we are going to play some games with our money. And we're going to get to the end of the month and we're going to count up everything. And let's keep this really simple as an illustration. Suppose I started that month and in my right hand I had $1,000 in American money. And in my left hand I had nothing. And I go to the casino multiple times and I do multiple things. And I get to the end of the month, and in my right hand, instead of $1,000, I have $950. And in my left hand, I have $200 in Amazon gift cards. And along the way, I was given a couple free lunches. And in an imaginary bank account at the casino, I have 50 imaginary dollars that can be spent on any real things that the casino sells. Whatever they might have that I want. Who won the game of casino gambling? And they said, oh, I get it. And I said, well, that's the use case for the podcast. I never really thought about a use case before. I didn't say it to them. I never would have thought to ask the question that way, but it was an interesting comment. And we actually then had a further conversation. And I said, other use cases for the podcast is I can show people, and I have shown people, how to beat the game of playing slots almost every month. And now their eyes got bigger. Now they were interested. And so I pointed them to the place on the website where they could download the ebook, Casino Combat Slot Tactics. I said, that's a great example of the use case for the podcast, bringing these resources together. And I said, and I can teach you how to beat many wagers in the casino, 6 or 7 wagers of the casino on a monthly basis, not on an every time, every table basis. And I can show you how to use that play to travel around the world on the play that you've already done. And the conversation moved on to other things, and I thought I'd explained the use case of the podcast fairly well. Very interesting question. But then I got to thinking on the ride home. I really did. Unfortunately, windshields in my brain tend to generate some what I think are interesting thoughts, and thankfully a lot of you do as well. And before I delve into that thought, let me do just a little story about the story to get to the, I think, a rather unique and interesting thought about what we are all doing here with our Casino Combat podcast. I assume many of you are familiar with the game Dungeons & Dragons and other role-playing games of that type, where someone runs a game, and the game mostly takes place with models and imagination, and everyone assumes an identity. Everyone is someone other than themselves. One is a barbarian, and one is a sneaky thief, and one is a cat humanoid that's very persuasive. And someone else is a hobbit or an elf, and they go out and they have adventures in an imaginary world created by the person running the game. And over time, since the invention of that game by Gary Gygax and his partners, other role-playing games have been created, adventures in space, adventures in the world of Mad Max, and ultimately that translated over into something called LARPing, live action role-playing, in which you dress as your character and portray your character in the real world while you interact with other people doing the same thing. So you might go to a park dressed as a barbarian and a hobbit and a this and a that, and you might take sides and engage in battles. This is not significantly different than doing a historical recreation of the Civil War. It is the same kind of idea. A bunch of people interested in the same thing, getting together and playing a part in a story that they are telling together. So let me offer you today another interesting use case for our podcast. In many ways, our podcast is a live action role-playing game in which we are all participants, and the world is indeed a stage and we are merely players, performers, and portrayers, each the other's audience upon the gilded stage. This is very, very true, but that's also what we are doing, right? Nakatomi Tony really only exists within the game we are playing, within the live-action role-playing game we are playing, and he exists as a character to protect his privacy as a person in the real world. but he's going to talk to you today as Nakatomi Tony and his experiences playing the game of casino gambling using Casino Kombat in real casinos in Atlantic City. Casino Kombat is a tool for doing LARPing in casinos and casino-adjacent areas in the real world. I get questions all the time addressed to TRG when I'm in the real world as my real self, right? I don't walk through the world. More lately, I do walk through the world as TRG, but I put on TRG's stuff. I put on TRG's ring, and I put on TRG's vest, and I put on TRG's boots, and I go out in the world and just, a simple example, I was sitting at breakfast on the cruise ship, and one of the guys from PCH said, "So what are the actual odds on when you place a 10? And I said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I don't know. I'm just me." TRG knows stuff like that because he gets to do research. He gets to look stuff like that up. I don't have that memorized. I'm not him. So when I'm around members of the squad and when I'm in certain situations in casinos where people know who I am and what I do, which is to say that they know I am a relatively skilled, pats on the back for me, relatively skilled gambler who gambles regularly and plays the character TRG on the podcast Casino Kombat, I'll get questions about myself or about the podcast that are somewhat TRG adjacent questions. But you're not going to look in any phone book and find Inner Circle member Dr. ECE fourth to the ring. You're not going to find the wonderful Atlantic City Empress. You are not going to find Equine Ensign. You'll find Same Bet because he LARPs as Same Bet within the Casino Kombat galaxy and the TRG verse while also existing as Same Bet on his own YouTube channel, which is an amazing channel that you should check out. A lot of information has been provided there. So there is this intersectionality, and I suspect the person who's intelligent and informed enough to ask me what the use case for the podcast is would love the idea that the intersectionality of the podcast is the fiction that all of us choose to overlay on the reality we share together in the real world. We do, in fact, as a result of this podcast, engage in live action role play often as the characters we exist as, only within the Casino Kombat galaxy. And if that was a bit weird and a bit trippy, and if you're saying to yourself, TRG, that really should have been a Moment of Concepts segment, not a Questions My Sons Ask segment, I'm not sure I would necessarily disagree. I think there's some truth to that. But I enjoyed answering the question at the holiday party, and I really enjoyed the idea that followed from that we are all involved in a live-action role-playing game in which our real lives are acted out also as Casino Kombat characters through this shared experience that we all have by way of this podcast played out to the world. So for those of you that have decided to LARP with me, with us, thank you very much. I'm really enjoying it. I hope you are as well. Next up, we are doing a Core Koncepts segment, and I'm not completely sure it fits what I normally do in Core Koncepts, but it's an interesting idea that I wanted to talk about because I'm interested in how we would apply this in our LARPing, in our daily gambling. I'm not sure I see how to make it fit other than in the way it was originally intended in the article I read, but let's go talk about that now.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
With new, gentler scented Clorox disinfecting wipes, clean finally smells as good as it feels. On everything from lamps to ceiling fans even on your kid's toy shark. Oh, ouch. Clorox Disinfecting Wipes, now available in ooh, crisp lemon. Find it on Amazon. Clorox, clean feels good.
So, as many of you have done, I'm sure, I recently on the internet started looking for a thing, which led me to another thing, and that's what we call the rabbit hole, right? I ended up going from a thing to a thing to another thing, and I came across something called the Kelly Strategy, and a Kelly Strategy calculator on a website called Captain Gambling. Very clever. I hope there's a cape that goes with that for Captain Gambling. But a nice site, a neat site. It was really an interesting idea. And where I think it fits within the core concepts is the core concepts have an idea of changing the amount wagered based on the outcomes of previous wagers, responding to wins and losses with increases and decreases to the next wager, as I said, as a result of the outcomes. And the Kelly Strategy and the Kelly Strategy calculator attempts to do that. It attempts to make bets based on kind of the outcomes of previous wagers, because the outcomes of previous wagers determine the bankroll you still have. And so the Kelly Strategy is a variable betting strategy. It's a tool for winning more and losing less, according to the author Mark Lewis. Or at least that's the goal of the strategy. Players adjust their wagers up and down based on their information to, in theory, win more reliably. Now, the Kelly criterion relies on bankroll information, odds, information, and probability to determine how much money to wager with each bet following an outcome. Bettors who want to win as much as possible can benefit from the strategy. So let's break this down. Let's talk through it a little bit. Variable betting is a betting strategy that relies on betting different amounts each time you make a wager to adjust to your changing bankroll and to take into account odds and wagering success. See, that's where I think it fits in the core concepts. Variable wagering is a wagering technique that tries to increase profit potential from positive outcomes and then, of course, reduce losses overall. So with the Kelly Strategy, we change the amount of our wager based on the odds of the specific wager as well as the total bankroll size. And by accounting for these two important variables, the strategy can more effectively adjust to help enhance positive outcomes and minimize losses. The Kelly criteria relies on an advanced formula to explain how much to wager in each specific situation. And in order for the formula to work, and this is where I have the problem, at least for myself, this is where perhaps some input from all of you could be interesting. But in order for the formula to work, the player must determine the chances of winning or losing a specific wager as accurately as possible. And the more accurate the prediction, of course, the more effective the strategy is going to be. Gamblers who want to make use of this unique betting strategy just have to get information about the wager. Well, that sounds easy, right? I just have to get information about the wager if I'm making a sports bet. Okay, but I'm not sure I'm good at doing that. But it says the information is things like the odds and the probability of winning the wager and combining them with the information about their current bankroll to get to a suggested wager amount. The better the chances of winning the wager, the more money the players are going to bet on the wager with this particular betting strategy. So what are the pros and cons of this strategy? The positive aspects are it prevents bets that are not likely to be profitable. Okay, I'm in favor of that. It protects against big losses. Also in favor of that. You win more frequently. I'm a fan of that. What are the cons? It ignores market fluctuations and their effects. That's a sports betting thing that wouldn't really be a casino betting thing. There's not going to be market fluctuations. It is difficult to handle multiple bets at the same time, and I get why for sports bettors that would be a big deal. I really do. It's not such a big deal for me. In the casino, other than at craps, I rarely have multiple bets at the same time. Don't think this would apply to craps. Blackjack, baccarat, we only have one bet at a time. So that's not an issue. And frankly, when I bet sports, I like to bet sports one wager at a time, find out the outcome, and then make additional strategies. One of my methods of control when it comes to sports betting is to treat it more like casino gambling and only make one bet at a time. And I know people like to bet a whole card of bets every day when they bet sports. That has not really been my process up until this point when I bet sports. So now we got to do the math. Here's the math of this particular strategy. The math is B times P minus Q divided by B equal F. Oh boy, that was fun, right? Let me run through that again. So you multiply B times P, subtract Q, and then divide that by B to get F. So what do these letters mean? B is the decimal odds of the bet minus 1. So that's going to be the key number to find out. That's going to be the key number that's going to drive this, that is not going to be just in your brain. The decimal odds of the bet minus 1. The probability of the wager being successful in decimal form. So a 60% probability of success would be 0.60. And then Q is the probability of a wager losing, and it's simply the opposite of that number, 1 minus that number. So if we have the probability of 0.6, then the probability of losing is 0.4, and that's going to get us to F, which is the fraction of your bankroll you should wager. Okay. Well, that seems easy enough. The author wants to tell us that to make use of the formula, players need only to plug in the different bits of information and do the math, and then apply that to their bankroll, and it's going to make everything easy to leverage the size of your bankroll on a good, quote, good winning opportunity. So what is TRG's problem with this? TRG's problem, even with research, is I can get the decimal odds of the bet. European sites use decimal odds of wagers. It's pretty easy to do that math. The probability of the wager being successful. The probability of the wager being successful. So let me run down an example for you here. Let me run down an illustration. Imagine that we're placing a wager with a 60% chance of winning, and the odds are 2.00. That's the decimal odds, 2.00. Our bankroll is $2,500. To find out exactly how much we're going to wager in this illustration, we're going to plug the numbers into the formula. So B in this case is 2.00 minus 1. P is 0.6 and Q is 0.4. And that gives us all the information to know. We end up with 1 times 0.6 minus 0.4 divided by 1. Calculate all of that out. We end up with an F factor of 0.2. And then we multiply 2,500 by 0.2, and that gives us a wager of $500 of our $2,500. Okay, interesting. And of course, it would be easy enough to make that into a spreadsheet or make that into some other tool to do the calculation. So here's where this falls apart for me. It's not the bankroll. It's not the size of the wager. I can get comfortable with all of that. Where I struggle is the probability of winning. Because that's the crux to all of this in the sports world, right? If you predict the probability properly, you're going to have a lot of success. And if you can't figure that out, you're not going to have any chance of success at all. We're just plugging in a made-up number. And if you've listened to any amount of time, you know I don't like guessing in my gambling. Not something I'm a fan of. But that's also why this makes me think that with perhaps our combined brain power, or perhaps just those of you out there that are better at all this than I am, that we could apply this where we do know the probability. Because while I don't think I know how to, and maybe somebody will, maybe somebody go, TRG, don't you know that you can go to blah, blah, blah.com and it'll show you the probability, in which case I'm willing to give this a try. But my thought when I read this was, when it comes to casino wagers, when it comes to a baccarat wager, a blackjack wager, a craps wager, we know the probability of success and failure. And then we could plug this all in, not necessarily to our bankroll, but to our buy-in, the fraction of the bankroll we use at the table. So within true Core Koncepts fashion, we could use this criteria to determine our next wager. Because the outcome, positive or negative, would increase our bankroll at the table. And if we could then quickly, because we're familiar with all of the math, run this number and then make our next wager, we can increase or decrease our wagers, that is, be progressive or regressive in our wagers based on the outcome of previous wagers, and that is what the Core Koncepts teach us to do. So as I read through this Kelly strategy, and as I thought about it, and I thought about the idea of why I can't apply it to sports betting in my own life at this moment in time, I liked the idea. And I liked the idea that if I just got a little smarter, which is to say, got a little help from my friends, perhaps we could all together figure out a way to apply this idea and this formula to betting in real time at a game like Baccarat, and increase, as the strategy says it will, the size of our wins and decrease the size of our losses. And those are also important core concepts. So that's why I thought I'd bring this to all of you. That's why it kind of got my wheels turning. I may sit down here in the lab now that I've got some time and actually run through some of this and apply the math of Baccarat or blackjack or craps to this idea. And then I also thought that I would take this opportunity to use the resources of the entire Casino Combat podcasting network to use, because a day or two after this episode publishes, I've got Katie and Kyle working on this, and how appropriate, lots of Ks. Katie and Kyle are going to take a look at the Kelly strategy and break it down for all of us as only they can. So, secret, I've got a secret. If you know, you know. But check out Casino Combat Deep Dive, where Katie and Kyle are going to take a look at the Kelly strategy and see what they can teach all of us about this very interesting approach to connecting your bankroll, or in my thought process, your buy-in, to how you change your wagers in response to previous outcomes. All right, next up, I'm going to talk to you for just a minute, and then I'm going to let Nakatomi Tony take over and show you an illustration of one of his days of doing Casino Combat in Atlantic City. As I said earlier, big thank you to Nakatomi Tony again. I've gotten really comfortable sitting down, being behind a microphone, and just talking. And that's not easy for everybody. And I put NT outside his comfort zone. I asked him to do something for me, and he shared after the fact that it was harder than he had expected it to be, that he needed several takes. And I really appreciate him doing that. And I think it's really important, because Nakatomi Tony is a great example of the use case of the podcast. And I'm going to share a little bit of his story here, hopefully in a way he doesn't object to. Nakatomi Tony grew up, spent his whole life within just a short distance of Atlantic City. As a young man, he was with his buddies bouncing around casinos in Atlantic City, looking for spare change in the slot machines, hoping to put together a total of $6 so they could go to a craps table and make a $6 bet on a 6 and see if they could run it up to something. And Atlantic City is certainly places that they went to hang out, or special events, or those types of things. But it's not really something he ever did regularly, and it's not something he ever did trying to make money, and it's not something he ever did trying to live a casino-enhanced lifestyle. In fact, he shared that he had a conversation with his wife, and she actually said something like, "Oh, casinos are still a thing?" Imagine that. Really imagine that. I mean, that very literally blows my mind. They live less than a half an hour from one of the best places for a player to play on the entire North American continent. Some of the best rules, some of the best odds, some of the best table limits, some of the best VIP lounges anywhere in North America. And Tony rarely went, and his wife didn't even realize casinos were still a thing. And so he has listened to the podcast. He has become a good friend. He's become a great advisor. The guy behind the guy in a lot of ways. Incredible asset to me and to all of us. And he lived so close to this. And until the podcast occurred, he'd never really seen it as a tool, as a place that he could pop into and out of, and then have the benefits of the meals and the gifts and the date nights and the free rooms and all of those types of things. And he's gradually, over the past year, roughly, approximately, get with him for a better rundown of that, but he's gradually been building out his network of places he plays in Atlantic City, focusing on the reward systems that made the most sense to him, where he was going to get the most value, and very methodically and very, very skillfully building those relationships a piece at a time, so that free parking was available, so that VIP lounges were available, so that room comps were going to be available, and doing that in such a way that he really put very little money at risk on each visit, and that if he took a loss, it was a small loss offset by other things. And he recently recounted all of this to those of us in written form, to those of us that hang out in the Slack virtual VIP lounge, and I thought, that is just such an excellent example of how I do casino combat, of how I live my day-to-day life. Here is someone who has actually learned and applied this, and that's why I made the ask. Because it's really important to me, personally, that you hear about this from someone other than me, than some voice other than mine. And yes, I confess, this could have been a plot all along to somehow trick you into clicks, I guess. Tony could just be a friend of mine. Tony could just be, Nakatomi Tony could just be a voice actor I hired and gave a script and made up this story. But enough of you know that that isn't the case. Or this is a very elaborate plot involving tens, if not hundreds of people to fool you for I'm not sure what reason. But it's important, that's why it's important to me that you hear someone else's voice and how they applied all of this. To know this isn't just something one person does or can do. To know that this is not just something that I fabricated for my own gratification for whatever reason, that the squad is real and the squad is other real people out there doing these things. And that's why I wanted to bring you Nakatomi's take, if you will, a day in the life of Nakatomi Tony doing casino combat.
Hey TRG, this is Nakatomi Tony. I wanted to tell you about a trip that I took to Atlantic City recently. I started my day at the Ocean. This month, my match play offer was increased to $25, available one time per week. I played craps. I was going to play the play all day strategy at a $25 level. I played for about an hour and decided to call it a day after that. Overall, I was down about a half a day's pay. Not terrible, but not great. They also had a free slot tournament taking place, so I decided to risk carpal tunnel syndrome and give that a shot. When it was over, I was ranked 36th overall, so I didn't win that. I decided to move on to resorts. Next, I had a $25 match bet waiting for me there as well. When I checked the kiosk, there was also a grab bag gift available. Not sure what that was, but I printed the coupon. At resorts, you have to go to the promotions booth for your match bet. So they printed the coupon for me and I made my way to the craps pit. Like my last visit, the only table they had open was a crapless craps table. I typically don't play crapless craps because the play all day strategy includes some don't pass bets, and on a crapless, that's not available. I had a great conversation with the dealer about how most dealers don't even like crapless, and most players don't bet the extreme numbers anyway. I would bet the dealers don't like crapless because of the extra work they have to do. So I played my match bet on the pass line with another $25 chip, which was more than I wanted to play on the crapless, but you can only use the match bet on the pass line and in the come, basically any even money bet. So after playing that bet, my plan was to play the table minimum $10 bets. The shooter threw a 7 on the come out, so my pass line and match bet won. I played about 45 minutes and ended up being up for the day about 0.4 days pay, so that brought my total down to being down about a tenth of a day's pay. It was then that I remembered the grab bag gift coupon and made my way back to the promotions booth. I was able to choose from 3 different gifts: a pizza pack, which looked like a triangle-shaped plastic storage container of some kind, a 12-pack of velvet-covered hangers, and the gift that I chose, which was a tabletop s'mores maker. I would estimate the gift's value was around $10, so I'll take it. In fact, it was my first physical gift ever from a casino. Both at Ocean and at resorts, I had free parking due to my tier level. So with the gift and the free parking at both casinos, I ended up positive for the day, about 0.1 days pay. Overall, not a terrible day. That's all I have to report. Take care.
Again, big thank you. I know that wasn't easy to Nakatomi Tony for sharing a little bit of his life with us. As I said, I really did want you to hear from someone other than me out there doing what I do and doing it well. Next up, let's adjourn. Let's have some sips in the virtual VIP lounge.
A little bit of the bubbly.
Welcome to the most must-listen-to segment in casino lifestyle podcasting, the Virtual VIP Lounge. Our lounge is open, and we have the best virtual everything virtually all the time. The best virtual food and drink served in any virtual VIP lounge anywhere on the interwebs, guaranteed, or your money back. Absolutely every single penny that you paid if this is not the best virtual food and drink served anywhere on the internet. Absolutely 100%. As always, join me in our wonderful VIP lounge. Press pause, pour yourself something, fix a plate. It is early Sunday morning here. We are just wrapping up the Thanksgiving holiday. The children have headed home. The grandchildren have headed home. We've done a little cleanup of the house. I have the last little bit of orange juice from the brunch carton here. I have the last cinnamon roll, not as good as it was when it came out of the oven, but still very good. And it is snow falling outside on a Sunday morning. And I was thinking about what do I want to talk about in the virtual VIP lounge? And it hit me. It hit me that it is something that if we were friends hanging out in the VIP lounge at a casino and we got talking about the dice cruise that I would just on, that this is something I would tell you about. And it's really neat. So let me tell you a little bit about how dining works on Royal Caribbean in my experience. If you eat in main dining for dinner, which I highly recommend, it is a unique experience in and of itself, highly recommended as I said. But if you eat in main dining, when you get on the ship, you are assigned a time and a dining room and a table. And that information will usually be on your SeaPass card on most sailings. And you have that table and that time every day. Now, if that doesn't suit you, you can ask them to change it. And when you get on the ship right away. And if you don't do that and you're not sure you want to eat at different times on different days because of different activities, you can do that. It's called My Time Dining. You show up like you would at any restaurant that doesn't take reservations, and you stand in a short line. It's usually 10 to 20 minutes max, and then you get seated at the next available table, essentially, for a party of your size. Well, for this sail, we had a 5 o'clock assignment. That suited us. We like that early dining time. It's kind of a come back from an excursion. You've been out running around all day, maybe haven't eaten since breakfast or grabbed something somewhere on the excursion, and get cleaned up and get put together and go to dinner. And then you have all kinds of flexibility in scheduling shows, doing casino time, seeing things that are going on the ship, all of those types of things available to you. So we do not mind that dining time at all. And in this case, on Symphony of the Seas, our assigned table was right by a window. A portal? Let's call it a window. It was actually an absolutely magical window. We were so fortunate that we randomly got assigned this table and this time, because every night we got to see a sunset in a different place. Now, if we'd have been assigned the later dining time, if we'd have been assigned the 7 o'clock dining time, the sun would have been down. The ship would have been out to sea. There would have been nothing to observe, nothing to enjoy. It would not have been in any way a magical window. But for us, it absolutely was. It was absolutely a wonderful feature of the trip. I took pictures of all of it. So the first night is a sunset as the ship has just left. So we're just out on the ocean, and it's a beautiful sunset. The next day, we were in Coco Cay, and there were other Royal Caribbean ships there as well. Coco Cay is their private island. And so as we left, just out in the distance, we could see another of the ships that had also left Coco Cay sailing off, and then a sunset. Following day was a day at sea, another lovely, wonderful sunset. The day after that, we were in Haiti. So as the sun is setting, it is setting over Haiti, across Haiti, around Haiti. We had a Haitian sunset. Not a lot to see because there's not a lot of lights or activity on the port in Labadee, Haiti. The next day, we're in the Dominican Republic. And now we're looking out at this bustling large city, and the ship is leaving, and we are sailing down the coast of the Dominican Republic, looking at this great big modern city, and the sun is going down, and the lights are coming up. And as we are enjoying dessert, all we're now seeing in the darkness is all the lights of this big city. Wonderful transformation to enjoy during dinner. And that kind of continued as we eventually had a day at sea, and then we went to Nassau. Each time a different scene, each time a different coast, each time a different sunset. And we finished on the last night, and the curtains were closed because the sun was so bright coming right at our magical window that it would have just been blinding. And I thought at the time, okay, that's fitting. It makes sense that for the last night, our magical window is not available to us. That just makes sense. It's the end of our trip. But it wasn't. It wasn't the end of our trip. Just after the appetizers were served, our team came by and asked if they could now open the windows because the sun was no longer coming directly into our magical window. And we did, in fact, get one more sunset. Completely random. Not something that could be controlled. I suppose there's probably people that have cruised longer than us, and they know that on certain ships, they want table 322 or 509 on deck 4. So maybe some people know that. Maybe they get to request that, or they know enough, not get to. Maybe they know enough to request it. We have never tried that. I don't even know if it's possible. Maybe I'm just making up spinning fantasies in my head. But we randomly got assigned a time when it wouldn't just be darkness. We randomly got a time where we would be able to see other ships and coasts and cities and mountains and sunsets. We got assigned it at the right dining time because the sun was always going down just as we were enjoying dinner. It was a wonderful, wonderful little bonus to sit by that particular window every night at that particular time. Please tip your waitresses, tip your bartenders, tip your dealers. If you have a host, tip your host. Don't tip away your wins. You know that. You remember your casino wisdoms, I'm sure. I have spoken. Everything you heard here is true from a certain point of view. In 10 years, we may find out I was wrong about all of this. It's time for leaving, and I hope you understand I was born a rambling man. Love it, hate it, it don't matter. Please share with your family and friends. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you so very much, as always, for the gift of your time. Stick around. The best part of the podcast is next.
For Atlantic City Empress, Casino Combat's ace. There are profits in the casino tonight, I can feel it in my bones. I had a premonition, you should probably play alone. I know the house has that advantage, but that's part of the thrill. If we follow the core concepts, the chips begin to spill. So baby, here's your player's card, put your bankroll in your hand. Use just some of that money now, do it just the way we planned. Just follow the core concepts, and you could win several grand. Well, it's good if it goes down like that, don't have to play to lose. It's gambling as a business, the Casino Combat Blues. Casino Combat Blues. The dealers and the pit bosses, the security and the law, the winning and the losing and the tricks nobody saw. No matter if it's blackjack, roulette or craps, you gotta carry defense, cause you always carry cash. There's lots of shady characters, lots of dirty deals. Everybody has an alias, cause that's more fun we feel. It's the lure of winning money, it's got a very strong appeal. Perhaps you'd understand it better standing in my shoes. It's the ultimate enticement, it's the Casino Combat Blues. Casino Combat Blues. Whoa. You don't see it in the headlines, you don't hear it every day. No one's trying to stop us, and we don't need to go away. We can gamble in Atlantic City, we can gamble in LA, we can gamble out in Vegas. I mean, we're here to stay. Gambling's propping up the budgets of folks like me and you. You ask any casino manager, he'll say there's nothing he can do. From the pockets of the casino, right down to me and you. Me and you. It's a winning proposition and one you shouldn't refuse. It's just the core concepts, the Casino Combat Blues. Casino Combat Blues.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contrast. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.